If you grew up in India, specifically around Mumbai or Pune, the road trip to Goa is something of a rite of passage. You imagine yourself tearing down the coast with the ocean breeze in your hair, leaving the stress of the city behind. That was the dream we were chasing. It was me, Rahul, and Vikram. It was December, peak season, and we had borrowed Vikram's dad's SUV. We started late. We didn't leave Pune until after 4 p.m., which meant by the time we hit NH66, the sun was already gone. By 11:30 p.m., the excitement had died. The music was off. The conversation had dried up hours ago. We were just tired, stiff, and starving. We had planned to stop at a proper restaurant, but we kept pushing, thinking we'd find something better, and eventually everything shut down. Then the fog rolled in. It didn't come gradually. It was like driving into a wall of white cotton. 1 second we could see the taillights of a truck ahead of us. The next, our world shrank to the 5 feet of pavement illuminated by our headlights. We were crawling at barely 10 miles an hour. The isolation was suffocating. That's when we saw it, a single hazy yellow bulb flickering in the void to our left. It was a roadside eatery. It looked ancient, barely standing against the wind, but even through the sealed windows of the SUV, we could smell the rich wood smoke and stew. Rahul, sitting in the back, leaned forward and practically begged us to stop. Vikram was hesitant. He didn't like the silence or the isolation. There were no trucks parked outside, no other cars, just gravel and the fog. But the smell was crazy, and eventually hunger won. We pulled over. The gravel crunched loudly under our tires, the sound echoing in the silence. When we stepped out, the air was damp and freezing. The place was empty. A single massive man stood behind a huge black bowl, stirring it with a ladle. He had a thick, unkempt beard and wore a stained white vest that barely contained his frame. When he saw us, he stopped stirring. He wiped his hands on a rag that looked black with grease. He flashed a smile and welcomed us with a booming voice that seemed to startle the birds in the trees. He said he had fresh mutton curry, boasting it was the best on the Konkan coast. We sat under the swaying yellow bulb. The plastic chairs were brittle and caked with dust. The man, who insisted we call him Baba, brought out steel plates that were still wet from being washed, and a bucket of the curry. The food was incredible. The meat was tender, falling apart at the touch of a spoon. We ate while Baba stood by the counter, leaning on his elbows, just watching us eat. About 20 minutes in, Rahul got up to use the washroom. Baba pointed a thick finger toward the back of the shack, past the kitchen area. While Rahul was gone, I tried to make small talk with Baba. I asked him if he got many customers this late. He smiled that wide, empty smile again and told me that the fog brings people and that the fog was good for business. He reached out to pour more water into my glass, and that's when I saw it. His wrist. Baba was a man who looked like he lived in this shack. His clothes were tattered, his sandals were held together with wire. But on his wrist, glinting in the yellow light, was a watch. It was a silver Omega Seamaster with a deep blue face. My dad is a watch guy. I grew up hearing about them. I knew exactly what that watch was. It was a luxury timepiece worth tens of thousands of rupees. It looked bizarrely clean against his grimy skin. I felt a prickle of unease, but I dismissed it. Maybe it was a fake. Maybe he found it. Then Rahul came back. He sat on the edge of the seat and kicked me under the table hard. I looked at him annoyed, but he shook his head slightly. He leaned in, pretending to reach for the water jug, and whispered so softly I had to strain to hear him over the wind rattling the tin roof. He warned us not to look, but told us that behind the counter, on the wall, there was a flyer. He explained it was a missing person poster for a guy named Akash Verma. Rahul had seen it at the toll booth 4 hours ago. He described the photo in the poster. A man wearing a suit with his hand up near his face who went missing in his car, and the same car was parked under a blue tarp in Baba's backyard. Rahul swallowed hard, his voice trembling as he delivered the terrifying realization. My blood ran cold. The taste of the spices in my mouth suddenly turned sour, and I took out my phone and looked up the missing person. I froze when I saw the photo, my brain connecting the dots. In the photo, the missing person was wearing the same watch Baba had on his wrist, and the meat we had just eaten. What the hell was it? I had to fight the urge to vomit right there on the table. I whispered that we needed to leave immediately. Vikram, gripping the table with white knuckles, hissed that we shouldn't run. We had to pay and walk to the car calmly. We stood up. My legs felt heavy, like I was wading through water. We walked to the counter. Baba was there, wiping his cleaver with that same dirty rag. He asked if we were leaving already. His smile gone, replaced by eyes that were flat. I managed to choke out that we had a long drive ahead. I threw a 500 rupee note on the counter and told him to keep the change. We turned to the car. We were 10 feet away. 5 feet. Then Baba's voice boomed out. It wasn't a request. He told us to wait. We stopped. He walked out from behind the counter. In the open, he was even bigger. He pointed out that we hadn't had tea yet, insisting that it was cold and we needed it for the road. Rahul tried to decline, his voice cracking, saying we were really full. But Baba started insisting, taking a step closer, the cleaver hanging loosely by his thigh. In that split second, Vikram lunged for the driver's side door, screaming for us to get in. We scrambled into the SUV. I threw myself into the passenger seat. Rahul dove into the back. Vikram slammed the door and jammed the key into the ignition. Baba walked towards us slowly. He wasn't rushing. Vikram turned the key. Click. The engine made a hollow, dead sound. Vikram pounded the steering wheel in frustration, crying out that the battery was dead, even though it had been fine 10 minutes ago. I looked out the window. Baba had picked up the cleaver and was walking toward the car. I realized then that he must have disconnected it. While we were eating, he had gone out back and pulled the battery cables. Rahul screamed for us to lock the doors. We hit the locks, but we knew it wouldn't matter. He could just break through. Baba reached the hood of the car. He laid a hand on it, caressing it. Then he looked at me through the windshield. He tapped the glass with the heavy steel blade. He mouthed the words, "Open the door." Vikram, his voice shaking but strangely calm, said, "We had to run. We had to get into the woods. It was the only way." I stared at him, terrified of the pitch-black darkness outside, but Vikram yelled that the car was a coffin. He told us to get out the passenger side on the count of 3 and run for the tree line. He didn't wait for 3. Vikram scrambled over the center console, pushing me. I opened the passenger door and fell out onto the gravel. Rahul scrambled out after me. Baba roared and sprinted around the front of the car. We bolted. We didn't look back. We ran straight into the suffocating darkness of the jungle. We crashed through vines and thorns. The ground was uneven, slick with mud and rotting leaves. Branches whipped my face, cutting my skin, but I didn't feel it. All I could hear was the blood pounding in my ears and the heavy thudding footsteps behind us. He was fast. For a big man, he was terrifyingly fast. He knew this terrain. We were stumbling blindly. We scrambled down a steep embankment, sliding in the mud. I lost a shoe. I didn't stop. Somewhere behind us, I heard a heavy thwack. Metal hitting wood. He was hacking through the brush. We ran until our lungs burned and our legs gave out. We found a cluster of massive rocks near a dried-up stream bed. We squeezed into a small crevice between the boulders, huddling together in the dirt, trying to silence our breathing. We lay there for hours. Every snapping twig, every rustle of leaves sounded like him. The jungle was alive with noise, but we were just listening for footsteps. Sometime around 3 a.m., we saw a flashlight beam cut through the canopy above us. It swept back and forth, playing over the trees. We held our breath. I clamped my hand over my mouth. The beam stopped on the rock we were hiding under. He was right above us, maybe 10 feet up the slope. I could hear him breathing, heavy, wet breaths. I could hear the faint metallic clink of the cleaver tapping against his leg. He stood there for what felt like an eternity. I closed my eyes, waiting for the light to hit my face, waiting for the end. Then, the light swept away. The footsteps started moving further down the stream bed. We didn't move until the sun came up. When the gray light of dawn finally filtered through the trees, we were covered in mud, bleeding and shivering. We didn't go back to the car. We hiked in the opposite direction for 3 miles until we hit the highway again. We flagged down a bus and went straight to the police station in the next town. They looked at us like we were ghosts. 3 terrified, muddy boys, one missing a shoe, standing in the middle of nowhere. They took our statement, but were skeptical. They said stories like this were common folklore. When we mentioned the watch and the car, the inspector's face changed. They sent a team out. We refused to go with them. Later that evening, the inspector called us into his office. They found the place, the missing person's car, and our SUV. But it was abandoned. Baba was gone. And inside the eatery near the chopping block, they found a loose floorboard. Underneath, in a crawl space dug into the dirt, they found personal items. Wallets, IDs, phones. There were 7 wallets, 7 different people who had gone missing on that stretch of highway over the last 4 years. And in the kitchen, in the massive freezer unit, they found bags, large bags of meat, labeled by date. The police never caught Baba. They think he disappeared into the deep jungle, or maybe he moved to another highway, set up another shack. I'm back in Pune now. Physically, I'm fine. But I am a vegetarian now. I just can't eat meat anymore without getting sick. And I will never forget the look on Baba's face when he watched us eat. The look of a man who was proud to share his cuisines. I hope they catch the nut job and put him behind bars soon, or there will be a lot more people going missing on the way to Goa. If you enjoyed this story, if it creeped you out even a little, hit the like button and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you think. You can check out other stories about haunted places, real encounters, and Home Alone horrors with the links here, or from visiting my channel. The Yaksha Files will be back soon with another case, and remember, always stay safe out there.